First of all, I wish to congratulate the High Representative's Office and IDLO for this major initiative. It is indeed very important. It is in large demand, and it's also to fill an important gap. The idea itself is not new, but the past efforts failed again and again since the early 90s, when World Bank, UNCTAD, UNCTAD, a number of organizations trying to come up with the idea to establish kind of a facility to help developing countries and LDCs in particular. But we faced two stumbling blocks. One is the sustainability in terms of financing. Second is because our mandate, like World Bank and UNCTAD, they provide a platform for dispute settlement. Therefore, they're supposed to be neutral. And for organizations like UNCTAD, that we have a full member states of all countries. So we have the constraints, and we work to trying to encourage developing countries, the donors, to work together on that. But it did not succeed, happen. But today, I'm really happy that this is happening, and this is that in partnership with the private sector, and I just congratulate the organizers for this important initiative. My second point is that when we provide technical assistance to developing countries, in LDCs in particular, we need to put the current international investment regime into the context and the perspective. I think has been rightly pointed out by the high-level special representatives, by the developing country representatives. There is a need, in fact, for the reform of this international investment regime. This highly fragmented, multi-layered, multifaceted, highly atomized regime is really in difficulties. And we see a lot of debates ongoing to reform such a regime. And in that sense, UNCTAD, our organization, came up with a reform roadmap to help countries, to help the investment development community to reform the existing regime. And such a reform not only concerns the investor-state dispute settlement mechanisms, but also in terms of its provisions, its setting up, and some of systemic issues. And above all, is to ensure that such system serve the sustainable development purposes. According to our analysis of the 3,400 investment treaties in our database, 95% of the treaties do not even mention the word sustainable development, not to mention the mechanisms to promote sustainable development through investment. There are also the dimensions in the investment treaty regimes that need to be strengthened. For example, investment promotion and facilitation. We have done the survey of these treaties. For investment facilitation, over 80% of the treaties do not have investment facilitation provisions. While we are talking about achieving sustainable development goals through investment and private sector participation, and we do not have the provisions and devices in the regime to do so. There are many other issues like a policy space. All these things need to be taken care of. And we know that 90% of the treaties were signed in the 90s. We need to renegotiate, reformulate, or to have joint interpretations. In that sense, this year's World Investment Report, we came up with 10 options for dealing with the old generation of investment treaties. And UNCTAD alone cannot make that happen. And we need joint efforts. And in that sense, UNCTAD would like to collaborate with our colleagues in the high-level Special Representative's Office and in collaboration with IDLO in this respect. And I recognize that in the podium, our senior management in UNCTAD, the former one, very well known, Mr. Chividi, and he knows us well. I think that provides a good opportunity to collaborate with your institution. So that's my second point. While we are supporting developing countries, we need to bear in mind we need systemic reform. We need to make sure that the current regime will support sustainable development goals. My last point is that in UNCTAD, just to let you know, we have full sets of tools for helping the countries in negotiating international investment treaties, in formulating their national and international investment policies. We have this new generation of investment policy framework called the Investment Policy Framework for Sustainable Development. And we have technical assistance programs, and that can be complementary to the current efforts that we are here today. And we'll continue to provide our backstopping. And one important effort we are doing is to build international consensus. And for that next month, there will be a conference called International Investments Treaties Conference. We do that every year, and we have all the treaty negotiators participating, the academia, the policymakers, and international organizations. So you are welcome to attend. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
I thank the representative of UNCTAD for pointing out the need for investment reform and also the challenges that we ought to be aware of as we embark on this new project.